You might think protein is just about building muscle, but what if I told you it's also the backbone of your skin, hair, and even the enzymes that keep you alive? The shocking part, most adults only need about zero point 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight, but athletes may need nearly double that. So why do so many people still obsess over eating more and more protein? And at what point does the extra add zero benefits? Let's unpack where the real limit is and why activity, not just steak or tofu, unlocks growth. The personal threshold. What if you could eat more protein than an athlete and watch nothing at all change in your body? That scenario surprises a lot of people because protein has been branded as the magic nutrient. But the truth is, much of what you eat beyond a certain point doesn't build, doesn't repair, and doesn't energize. It just stacks up in ways you may not notice. This is where the idea of your personal threshold comes in, and it's often smaller than you think. Consider how much noise we hear about high-protein breakfasts, protein-packed bars, and shakes advertised with lightning bolts on their labels. The push makes it sound like every adult needs as much protein as an Olympic sprinter. Yet the reality, according to standard health guidance, is very different. For adults who are not training like professionals, the baseline requirement hovers much lower. That number, about 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight, covers the body's day-to-day upkeep. It fuels enzyme activity, keeps your immune system ready, and maintains the tissues you already have. Now compare that to an athlete who pushes their muscles to the edge with daily training. Their intake rises above baseline, sometimes reaching twice as much. But the surprise lies not in the difference, but in the limit. Once you climb close to that ceiling of 1.6 grams per kilogram, the extra no longer translates into more performance, more strength, or a healthier body. It's like filling a tank that's already full. Here's a picture to keep in mind. Imagine your body is a construction site. Protein works as the stack of bricks needed to build walls and repair cracks. But bricks alone don't create a house. You need construction workers, strength training, resistance activity, or any effort that stresses muscle works like those builders. Without them, the extra bricks just pile up off to the side. It doesn't matter if you're storing 1 truckload or 4. This is the part that challenges the modern obsession. We're told that more powder, more bars, and more animal protein will guarantee better energy and muscle shape. The idea is marketed as if health equals more grams, more gains. Yet biology doesn't follow that slogan. Without the builders, without the mechanical stress of lifting, pushing, sprinting, the protein cannot turn itself into new structure. Taken alone, it's simply more material looking for a use. And the payoff of training doesn't stretch forever either. At the start, raising your protein helps your body adapt, but as you reach that level around 1.6 grams per kilo, the curve flattens. Add more and the returns shrink to almost nothing. Your metabolism still has to process it, your kidneys still filter out the excess nitrogen, but your muscles don't magically expand. The system is efficient but capped. This boundary is what many supplement companies hope you forget. If you truly needed infinite protein to stay healthy, humans would never have thrived in societies that grew around beans, grains, and modest portions of meat. The simple baseline is enough for maintenance, and the elevated range covers the push of training. Beyond that, you are stacking bricks with no house to build. Think about how that simple point could save a lot of confusion and even money. Instead of chasing scoop after scoop, you could focus on what matters, the training itself, and then eat enough quality protein to support it. That way, your intake scales with your activity, not with the claims on a glossy bag. For most people, that's the upper benefit ceiling. It's real, it's tight, and it connects directly to what you do, not how much powder you stir into water. The rule seems less glamorous than a celebrity diet ad, but it frees you from the idea that health is a race toward endless grams. You already have the tools, you simply need to match intake to output. Now that we've set the limit for a single body, what happens when an entire nation shifts its diet at once? The global shift. Why did rising incomes across Asia and Africa change the protein mix on dinner tables? The answer lies in how money influences what people eat. As household income goes up, diets shift. Families that once lived mainly on rice, maize, or millet start to add more eggs, chicken, fish, and milk. It's often called the nutrition transition, a move from simple staples toward more diverse meals anchored by animal protein. At first, the change looks positive. Higher income lets people escape the monotonous diets that leave gaps in iron, zinc, or essential amino acids. Protein sources from animals often provide those nutrients in concentrated form. But hidden in this story is a more complicated divide. While some tables load up on beef and dairy, others remain stuck on the same few staples with little variety at all. Think about a household in a rural farming region. For generations, protein came mostly from beans, lentils, and occasional fish. That menu could be modest, but it covered the basics. As nearby cities industrialize and incomes rise, diets begin to look very different. Suddenly, fried chicken stands open on busy streets. Milk consumption rises among urban children. Cheese, once rare, becomes a weekly item in wealthier homes. That's the after picture of the transition. The before was a diet rooted almost entirely in plant protein. This shift is not isolated. Market data shows that in the past 3 decades, global protein consumption has sharply increased. The boom is driven above all by animal sources. You can see it in grocery shelves, restaurant menus, and export markets that now ship more meat than ever. The growth of international trade fuels this cycle. When demand rises in one place, supply chains stretch to fill it. But the distribution is anything but equal. While some populations now exceed the amount of protein actually needed for good health, others cannot meet even the minimum. In wealthier cities, you might see consumers getting double or triple the baseline requirement without realizing it. In struggling regions, people still miss out, leaving children undernourished, their growth stunted by lack of protein. This gap is stark. The abundance of some runs in parallel with scarcity for others. Governments play a crucial role in how this plays out. By subsidizing certain foods, they shape the dishes that reach dinner tables. For instance, a country that subsidizes milk production sees dairy rise as a common daily choice. Trade policies do the same, favoring imports of cheaper meat or pushing exports of local grains that might have fed domestic households. Public health bodies also issue dietary guidance. These recommendations may support balanced protein intake, but whether they align with economic incentives is another matter. Culture layers over these forces with equal strength. Food traditions decide which protein sources are even acceptable. A community with strong vegetarian customs will continue to rely on lentils, chickpeas, or soy products despite rising wealth. In contrast, another group may boost red meat intake as a visible sign of status. This shows why wealth is never the full explanation. Money creates opportunity, but heritage, religion, and taste direct how those opportunities are used. This blending of economics, policy, and culture explains why the picture of protein is so uneven worldwide. In one place, diets bend heavily toward meat and cheese. In another, beans and fish remain the mainstay. Both are responses to changing incomes, but filtered through politics, trade, and tradition. The mini payoff here is simple. Protein isn't just a personal number you count at the gym, it is geopolitical. Wealth allows you to buy steak, but policy decides whether beans will still appear on your plate. It also decides if your neighbor can afford even the most basic sources. So the story of protein becomes far bigger than nutrition. It's a story about how nations walk the line between prosperity, access, and culture. But these choices hold a cost that goes beyond health and economics. They ripple directly into the planet's climate balance. The planet's protein dilemma. What if your steak had a larger carbon footprint than your car trip? That comparison sounds extreme, but it reveals the scale of what's hidden in plain sight. Protein is not only a nutrient, it's an environmental choice. Every cut of meat, every glass of milk, every block of tofu comes with a cost in land, water, and greenhouse gases. When we talk about meeting individual needs or national appetites, we can't ignore the impact that feeding billions of people leaves on the planet. Animal protein, especially beef and lamb, comes at the highest price environmentally. These animals are ruminants, which means they release methane as they digest food. Methane is a powerful greenhouse gas, and it adds up quickly across large herds. Not only do these animals release more gases than pigs or chickens, but they also demand more land and water. Vast areas are cleared for pasture or to grow crops for feed. In contrast, plant proteins like lentils or soy need far less space and far less water. Comparing the two side by side makes the difference simple to understand. A plate of beans leaves a fraction of the footprint of a steak. The damage also extends beyond emissions. Livestock production monopolizes arable land. Imagine an open field. If used for cattle feed, it produces only a fraction of the protein that the same land could generate if planted directly with legumes. By rooting crops through animals first, efficiency is lost. Water follows a similar path. It takes far more resources to raise beef than to grow chickpeas, even when harvested on the same patch of soil. We often see meat as a sign of progress, but scaling it leaves a hidden environmental debt. And while demand for animal protein is rising, climate stress turns the system vulnerable. Heat waves reduce fertility in livestock. Droughts limit pasture growth, forcing farmers to buy feed at higher cost. At the same time, rising carbon dioxide in the air lowers the protein content of staple crops. Wheat, rice, and maize grown in future conditions may offer fewer essential amino acids per serving. That means both animal and plant systems face pressure. The very building blocks we rely on, muscle in animals, protein chains in crops, are shaped by the climate they grow in. In response, new approaches to protein are on the table. Plant-based alternatives aim to mimic the taste and texture of meat while avoiding the resource cost of raising animals. Burgers, sausages, and even seafood replicas created from soy, pea, or wheat proteins show how science retools plants to meet familiar cravings. In labs, researchers are growing meat cells directly without raising an entire cow. This cultured meat promises identical biology to real meat, but without the methane, the land clearing, or the slaughter. Then there's microbial or fermentation protein, using bacteria, fungi, or algae to produce edible protein at scale. Seen together, these represent a radical rewrite of how we source our meals. But the catch is price and access. Right now, most of these alternatives remain targeted at higher-income consumers. Lab-grown meat is still too costly for everyday shopping, and plant-based brands often cost more than bulk beans or chicken. For poorer households, the choice remains between what's affordable, not what's sustainable. This creates an uncomfortable gap. Wealthier groups can choose low-impact proteins, while others are locked into whatever staple they can afford. If the future of protein is to be sustainable, it must also be accessible. Policymakers know this tension. The idea of a planetary health diet, proposed in international reports, calls for major reductions in red meat and higher reliance on plant proteins. On paper, it's a vision of balance, richer diets where nutrients support health while the planet's limits are respected. But here's the barrier: billions of people cannot afford that plate today. For them, even beans and lentils compete with budget and availability. Setting dietary targets without addressing economic reality leaves the plan uneven and incomplete. So, what does this all mean for us? It shows that protein has to meet three measures at once. It must nourish bodies, remain affordable, and lower the environmental cost. Leave out one of those pieces and the system tips. Nutrition without sustainability exhausts the planet. Price without quality leaves people undernourished. Sustainability without access turns it into a luxury reserved for a few. The protein of the future must deliver all three or it fails. With these trade-offs in view, we return to the personal question: what should you do? Conclusion: protein isn't really about chasing bigger numbers. It's about finding balance that covers your health, respects your wallet, and doesn't overload the planet. When you think about your next meal, it's not just the grams that matter, but the source. Beans, fish, chicken, or lab-grown meat all carry different ripple effects. Your personal choice echoes far beyond your plate. So here's the challenge: rethink where your protein comes from and what it supports. Let us know in the comments and subscribe to our channel. And ask yourself, could the protein on your fork one day be brewed in a tank?